What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name's Michael Roman. Now, the Falcon in the Winter Soldier undoubtedly has delivered on a couple of key moments and scenes. The last episode was non-stop and really got fans excited about what's to come in the last two episodes. Speaking of which, we've now heard from an official producer on the show that this is not the end of Isaiah Bradley, and where I thought it was a missed opportunity to dismiss that character in the fashion they did, no flashbacks, no greater explanation, apparently he will be returning in the last two episodes. We're going to break down the entirety of the interview, what this producer said about his upcoming cameo, what his role in the show really is, and how the character differs a little bit in their take from the comics. We're going to break down everything Isaiah Bradley's return in the Falcon in the Winter Soldier. But first, if you could grab the subscribe button, we're still giving away a PlayStation 5 at 900,000 subscribers. We just announced the 800K winner last week. We're also giving away Disney Plus subscriptions every week while the shows are live. If you want to be entered to win, all you have to do, hit that subscribe button, then leave a comment down below. And if you want, stick around to the end of the video. We'll get into all the giveaway stuff again there. So Isaiah Bradley's official return was teased in an interview with Vanity Fair within their Still Watching podcast. Marvel Studios producer Nate Moore was asked point blank about the Isaiah Bradley storyline, and this is what he had to say in reference to whose idea it was to put him in the show. That was Malcolm, referring to Malcolm Spellman, the head writer on the series, who we've talked about a couple of times throughout this season. He said, "I want to do this. What's your feeling about this? I know it was a controversial comic." I said it would be great. Bradley's amazing. He continued to say, "I read Truth, Red, White, and Black a long time ago. I didn't think the comic was great, but I thought the idea was great, and I think Malcolm was very smart in figuring out how to anchor that story into the overall fabric of the show." Fabric is really about legacy, right? It's about the legacy of Cap's shield and kind of America. I think if there's an overarching theme or idea of the show, it wants to interrogate that. It's that legacy for everyone, and everybody is going to see that legacy differently. Isaiah Bradley in the MCU version, which Carl Lumbly has done a fantastic job on, is a much more vocal participant in that conversation than he was in the books, because he was a vegetable, he was infantilized, he sort of had all the agency taken out of him. Malcolm gave him that agency back, and now he's a character that can actually have a conversation about what the show's about, and that's because, if you remember, he had really deteriorated by this age in the comics because of the super soldier serum. He goes on to finish saying, "And really weigh on the things that are subconscious on Sam's character. Isaiah gets to make them conscious. He gets to bring them out. And I think that's such an important character, and more to come, but I think that's why Isaiah Bradley's inclusion was so great." And again, all credit goes to Malcolm Spellman for really advocating for that. He said, "And really weigh on the things I think are subconscious in Sam's character. Isaiah gets to make them conscious. He gets to be the mouthpiece," and then goes on to say, "More to come." Now, as I said about the second episode, and before we got episodes 3 and 4, and yes, I think the exposition in the first half of this series was a little long, and they were trying to find their footing. We've also found out there was a lot of rewriting going on, and hats off to Eric Voss for really discerning all of that over at New Rockstars and explaining all of the scenes that really very clearly are sort of voice dubbed and have interjectionally some dialogue put in them to make them make sense. That being said, in episode 2, when we're introduced to Isaiah Bradley's character, I do not think I was the only one who wanted to see some flashback scenes of him in action. And although I'd love to think that the quote-unquote more to come includes those flashbacks, I think undoubtedly what we're probably going to see out of this character is a revisit by Sam, or him show up to sort of mentor Sam or talk to Sam, maybe in the way that Steve Rogers would have if Steve Rogers were to make a cameo in the show, which I think the producers awaited officially towards the beginning of the series. I actually think this came from Kevin Feige. I know you guys will correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, that Steve Rogers is not coming back during the show, and I didn't think he would do so this early anyway. I mean, that's sort of the thing, right? If you bring him back, the shadow's not quite gone. You can't allow Sam to grow into that spot. But unfortunately, I think he's going to play that role in getting to talk to Falcon, talk to Sam Wilson about his trepidation. Again, this is what Malcolm Spellman said about touching on the idea of what it means to have a black Captain America, and I've seen a ton of response to this episode in general, that one scene with Isaiah Bradley, and then to the Winter Soldier, for touching on sort of more real-world things over the last couple of months. And honestly, I feel like it's really resonated with fans in the way that sort of has grounded this show more than I thought that it would. I've talked about this often at the channel. The escapism that we turn to Marvel for has never really been their style, at least not recently in the comic books. They've used their comic book platform to talk about real-world injustice and sort of use it to illustrate and or educate the public on what's going on, and that's a great thing. It's awesome to see the MCU now step up to the plate and do the same thing. And you know, I'm going to speak freely in my reaction here because this is important to me. I've talked about this a lot originally way back when we started the channel regarding the in-between time between Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, because that's where the MCU really started to blend the Guardians of the Galaxy, the cosmic storylines they had introduced, with what we had been introduced originally in the earliest parts of the MCU. The reason we were so endeared to the MCU in the first place wasn't just because the CGI finally caught up to the story that they wanted to tell, but the realism in these stories, using great actors to tell a story where we could immediately identify and see ourselves in the superhero, and then taking this crazy mythic lore, some of the silliest stuff that's out there, Marvel Comics, and making it as real as possible. Realism has undoubtedly been a hallmark of US cinema for the last century, and this superhero craze that kicked in within the last 10 or 20 years is evidence of this all the way. A fantastic story fit through the lens of realism. Well, that realism started to fray a little bit as we moved into Avengers Endgame, but you can't have it both ways. And now for a more grounded story like the Falcon in the Winter Soldier, I've said this a couple of times tongue-in-cheek, but Falcon will never face off against Adam Warlock. Those are two different kinds of characters telling two different kinds of stories. You can never have Falcon have any success against a member of the Eternals. But what you can use a character like Falcon to do is tell the realistic story that we're getting now with real-world problems, and you take something like the snap and the blip, something absolutely insane that could never happen, and then you ground it in realism with things that would happen in the real world, and you can use a show like this to tell that part of the MCU story and actually have it resonate. You know, half of the universe disappeared and then returned. That would lead to a lot of real-world problems, and if we don't get a story like the Falcon in the Winter Soldier to give prime examples of the injustice that would follow that, well, then you don't get that part of the MCU. The show is playing an integral role, as I imagine the shows will continue to do in their own special way, and I, for one, am here for it. Can't wait for more Isaiah Bradley. I wish we would get some sort of flashback of him in action. I think that would be amazing, but again, I don't think that's to come. More just the voice of reason and or sort of a mentor role for Sam in the way that Steve Rogers would have been if he'd have a cameo, but again, I'm pretty sure officially he's not in the series. Guys, let me know all your thoughts down below, how you feel about all of this, and quickly, let's get into the giveaway stuff before I let you go. We're still giving away a PlayStation 5 now at 900,000 subscribers. We just announced the 800K winner last week. We're also giving away Disney Plus subscriptions every Friday while the shows are live. If you want to be entered to win, all the same rules will always apply. Hit the subscribe button because you need to be a subscriber, then leave a comment down below. Because it's truly random, the more videos you comment on, the better chance you have of winning. All winners will be selected and then announced at the end of the videos the same way we're doing here. The best way to keep up with the content here at the channel is to hit that notification bell with notifications turned on, and as always, I would appreciate it if you smash the like button. My name's Michael Roman. You can find me over on Instagram and Twitter at IamFires. You can also find me on Spotify, YouTube, and all other musical platforms, Apple Music, wherever you get your tunes on, under All Fires. Thanks so much for checking out the channel, and stick around, guys. We'll be posting again real soon.